It is 6:30. I call this meeting of the Old Saybrook Police Commission to order. Please rise and join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. We'll begin with comments from the public. Is there anyone in the live audience wishing to make a comment? Yes, please come forward, identify yourself and give us your address.
Okay, the address that I live at or the address that I have prepared?
None of the address.
So, okay, I am Gwen Pond. My address that I live at is 115 Maple Avenue.
Please proceed.
Oh,
Remember, we have 3 minutes.
I have 3 minutes. I practiced this morning and I came in 5 seconds short. Don't start the clock yet. And I thought, okay, I'll stop. Oh, yeah, here, pause it. Take one and pass it along in case I go too fast in my 3 minutes. So I just wanted to thank you all for having this meeting and giving me the opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. Here it is. A primary, this is traffic pedestrian light safety in Old Saybrook, and I would like to just mention my primary concern and make some suggestions stemming from that primary concern, which has grown some other concerns. So without further ado, a primary concern has been the intersection of Maple and Main, especially the corner as you're turning right onto Maple from Main headed towards the port. The corner can be taken at relatively high speeds and the sidewalk at that corner is very difficult to see as you round the corner. So the sidewalk is extremely close to the road in addition, and walkers and bikers alike are unsafe there. And I've told my kids for years, get off your bike and say, coming around the corner, because nobody can see you because of the closeness of the tree and that old house, which is lovely. The house, not the closeness. This intersection should be addressed by the town and not made to wait for the next time the state reviews that area. At a minimum, this and other areas of concern in the town should be noted as such on a listing made publicly available by the LTA. Our good friend, Mr. Chief Sparrow, is our LTA, the local traffic authority. This issue has been raised with our town selectmen and also with Chief Sparrow. He kindly met me there. We had a lovely discussion, and I know there's been a lot on the plate. So it's been quite a few years that this has been a concern and been brought up. So, and other issues have been noted as traffic areas of safety concern. But given the time that it takes to have something addressed, I'm recommending that a system for logging areas of concern be developed to track these areas and made publicly available on the town website. And this should be open for other submissions or even rankings. There may be an opportunity to supplement our LTA with an assistant, perhaps, in order to address these concerns. And there's a program that UConn offers to do some training on this front, Connecticut Municipal Local Traffic Authority Program, and the link is there, so maybe we can get some good tips on how to be expedient about addressing this stuff. So for the commissions and our LTA's consideration, 30 seconds. Okay, so other folks have mentioned the concern. I posted on OS Neighbors, so I have a listing from about 30 other folks in town that have other areas. I want to highlight those, and they're there, number 3. And then here are some great safety improvement recommendations. And I have that here. Hopefully I can leave all these great documents. And there's links there. I like this one a lot. Crosswalk visibility enhancements. And then just of note, there's 2 others that I include here. Oh, dang. Yes. Okay, so thank you for your time. That 3 minutes is very
Thank you, Ms. Pendleton.
nerve-wracking, but thank you. Thank you, guys. So here's the rest.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Gather these up.
Okay.
Listen, telling them.
Right.
Nice to meet you. Did you bring treats also for the audience?
Well, I would have.
Nice job.
Thank you.
They're not going to give these to you and ask you to copy them and circulate them.
Oh, okay, sure. We can email them out.
Anyone else in the live audience? Is there anyone in the virtual audience who would like to make a comment? Is there a hand raised anywhere, Larry?
No hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next item on the agenda, discussing and possible action on the meeting minutes first for the regular meeting dated January 23, 2023. May I have a motion?
So moved.
To approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Good job, Jen. Next item, special meeting, February 13, 2023. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, the next item is an executive session item. Usually we have executive sessions at the end of the meeting, but this involves two of our probationary officers who are attending the police academy. We want to get them on the road back to the academy as soon as possible. Please hang around. This will not take very long, I don't think. And I see our candidates in the back there, so say hello to them on the way out.
You asked.
Motion to enter into executive session with
I like directions.
the chief. The captain.
Yes. You need a motion and a second.
I think we need a motion.
Yes.
So second, a motion to,
I make a motion that we
Move into-
don't move into executive session.
yeah,
And
Invite the candidates and everybody around this team.
all right. Second,
second.
all in favor? Aye. Carried unanimously. Chief.
Thank you. We'll ask the candidates to step out into the hallway, please.
We are out of executive session. Let's turn to item 5 on our agenda. Executive reports. Chief.
Great, thank you very much, and good evening once again, commissioners. You have been provided with the fiscal year 23 operating budget report in your packets. I'm very comfortable where we are. Obviously, there are some individual line items where there are overruns, like the gasoline line item, because we did not pre-purchase this year due to the volatility of the market. And obviously our legal expenses, a couple of different personnel line items that we've expected with the personnel change, but I am not concerned at all where we are currently with the budget.
All right. Any questions? Of the budget process.
Great. So fiscal year 24 budget process. I know there's the town meeting, not public hearing, right? Public hearing, town meeting, public hearing, I think, on the budget, the first week of March, second week of March, maybe it's March 7th or 9th. I don't know if anyone here knows.
I don't know exactly.
I think
Yeah.
it's the seventh.
I think it's the 7th, too.
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. So that's the town's opportunity to go and listen to some presentations by, I would imagine, the first selectman, the finance director, and the superintendent of schools on the two various budgets. We did submit the notification to the finance director and the first selectman based on the motion that you made at the special meeting to reduce our budget by the $20,000. And that is reflected in the selectmen's budget that is going to the public hearing on the budget. We have not yet compiled the budget books because I didn't want to make a book and then say minus $20,000 and change all the percentages, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, this is well through the process. So my question to the commission is do you still want the traditional budget books compiled, or are you fine with your draft document minus $20,000? How would you like us to proceed? We're willing to do whatever the commission wants.
Since the only change is that 20,000, I don't think I need 20,000 out of 5+ million is not going to change things much.
Okay, so no need. Okay, very good. Yes, of course.
Since we had that three-way or three-commission board meeting, was there also a presentation, or was that the presentation so that we just now are going into public hearing? In other words, usually a department comes in and presents. You kind of presented to all three at once, so that was it, right?
Yeah, so and that was the point, Commissioner, to make sure I could do one presentation instead of making 3 individual presentations. So for those in the audience and online, we had that special joint meeting, Police Commission, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, one presentation, which has been online for everyone to view. I would imagine that after the public hearing, if the Board of Finance has any questions for the department. I'll be asked to come in and answer some questions. I think the Board of Selectmen was fine with what they heard, in addition to the request to reduce our budget by $20,000. Okay, so we will not process those books. That will make Jen very, very happy.
What was the effective percentage after the 20,000? It was probably under 3 at this point.
Yeah, I don't have that in front of me, but I certainly can get that for you.
All right, off budget accounts.
Yeah, so just one thing to note, there's a very, very minor clerical error on the police insurance exchange. You have a brand new sheet in front of you that reflects the proper numbers. There's just 2 deposits that were duplicated by error, but it's now fixed. And again, you have the corrected sheets in front of you.
I had a question about that one.
About which one? The police insurance exchange?
Yeah, police insurance exchange. The
Yes.
very last item on there is Grossman Chevrolet. I assume that's invoice for repairs to a car.
That's for a car that was involved in a crash, correct?
And the reason I question it is the invoice, I'm sorry. Yeah, the invoice was October 17 and it wasn't paid until February 3.
We're waiting.
Was there a problem with that?
Waiting for the insurance money. Yeah, so if you remember last meeting, we were at a little bit of a deficit in this account. I told everyone, do not worry, money coming. It came in and
So
we
that-
paid our final bill.
It is not typical of our payment record.
No, not at all. No.
Was that vaguely remember us going over this, like an officer, that was the officer's fault?
Yes,
Yes, okay,
yes,
got it.
that is correct.
So we move on to personnel matters.
Okay, well, you met our 2 recruits who are still in the academy, along with patrolman trainee Egan. He's in the senior class. The 2 that you met with are in the junior class. I want to give you an update on Mr. Zarbo's decertification request. So I received a letter on February 16th from the police academy. I'll just read it into the record. Dear Chief Spira, this letter serves to advise you that the Police Officer Standards and Training Certification Division has received your request dated February 15th, 2023 to suspend, cancel, or revoke the Connecticut Police Officer certification of Joshua Nelson Zarbo. In accordance with the Police Officer Standards and Training Council's regulation, section 7-294E-18, officers are allowed the opportunity to show compliance, and this process may take several months before your agency hears from us. Right now, it's about a 6-month backlog. An internal file has been opened and issued, post case number, and they give the number. Cases are reviewed in the order in which they are received. Please note that during this time, the certification compliance officer may reach out to you for additional documents or information if needed. Should you have any questions concerning this matter, please feel free to contact me. Email is the preferred method of correspondence. So I kind of wanted just to remind, take a moment, if you'll let me, Mr. Chairman, just to remind the commission of how this process works. So decertification is nothing new, but decertification under the Police Accountability Act is. To give you an example of how new it is and how this is kind of a learning process, the Harris matter was actually the first contested case under the new Police Accountability Act that had to do with undermining the public's confidence in a local law enforcement. And so we learn as the process goes on. So as I apply for any officer to be decertified, the maximum amount of time that an officer can be decertified is 2 years. At the end of that 2-year period,
2 years starting.
2 years, usually starting from the date of the offense. However, it's up to the deciding body. So it could be the date of the decision or date of offense. They have the latitude to choose that. So at the end of a 2-year period, that person is eligible for rehire as a police officer in Connecticut. During that 2-year period, their name is placed on a decertification list. So police departments in Connecticut can look at the list. If their applicant's name is on the list, there is no way that the Police Officer Standards and Training Council can issue them a certification until the end of that 2-year period. Again, the end of 2 years, they're eligible for rehire. When an employee resigns under investigation for malfeasance, the department sends a form to the Police Officer Standards and Training Council, because remember, they are the certification czar, right? They're the only ones that can certify or decertify a police officer. If an officer resigns under investigation for malfeasance, we submit a one-page form to the police academy indicating that they resigned while under investigation for malfeasance.
And just to follow the analogy to Mr. Harris, that would be applicable to Mr. Schultz.
Don't want to get into that, you can read into that yourself, but he did resign under investigation. When you do that, that person is never, ever eligible to become a police officer in the state of Connecticut again. Decertification, 2 years, resigned under investigation for malfeasance, can never become a police officer again.
In Connecticut.
In Connecticut. There is neither case that prevents them from being hired in any other state because the state of Connecticut does not govern any other state. There is no federal rule that says whether you've resigned under malfeasance and or were decertified that says you cannot hire an officer. There is a national decertification list that you go on if you're decertified. But again, it's still up to that individual state, that individual department to decide whether or not they want to hire a former Connecticut officer or not. I have confidence that any other police department in the United States of America that wants to hire a former Old Saybrook police officer who either was decertified and terminated or resigned for malfeasance would contact us for training records and personnel records, in which case the department could share the information that we have on that individual. So as we sadly have to do these things, right? And so, you know, the question is some people, wow, 3 cops in a year. Yes, we're doing our job policing the police. I don't enjoy this, as the commissioners know from executive sessions. I certainly do not enjoy bringing troubled police officers to your attention. I also take my responsibility seriously. You don't see me suspending someone for 9 or 10 days for a serious offense, which I could do, and then nothing else could happen. You see me bringing these serious matters of concern to your attention because it's your statutory responsibility to handle bad police officers. And sadly, in the past year, we've had 3 cases of that. And I believe that the commission has done the correct thing all 3 times. You followed my recommendation, and I appreciate that because I can't have a force that I can't trust. So Mr. Zarbo's case will go forward. When you go forward for a decertification, there's an actual hearing. So during the hearing, witnesses can be presented, just a regular administrative hearing. After the administrative hearing happens, the hearing officer has 90 days to submit a report and a recommendation to the post-council's action committee. The post-council action committee will review that administrator's report and recommendation and make a final recommendation. So in the previous case where we asked for decertification, there was an administrative hearing, 90 days to write up the report. That eventually went to the action committee, and the action committee chose to decertify the officer for 2 years. In other cases where people resigned while under investigation, remember when doing so, can never ever be a cop again. There is no hearing. So there is no evidence.
I'm sorry, in Connecticut or everywhere?
In Connecticut.
Right. Okay, so just to be clear. All right, Harris or Schultz, who we're not talking about, can never, ever be a cop in Connecticut again.
That is incorrect.
Officer Harris can.
Officer Harris can, sorry.
So officer, not
because he
officer,
was
Mr. Harris
Yes,
was decertified.
so he has 2 years.
He has 2 years, and after that, he can apply and has the possibility of becoming certified again. Nothing's a lock, right? A department's got to hire you. You got to go through the background, the polygraph.
Right. But the other said officer, no.
If you resign under investigation for malfeasance, you can never be a police officer in Connecticut again.
So he is no longer gonna be able to be a cop in Connecticut.
As soon as he signed his agreement,
Just in Connecticut.
But that's for everywhere. Every officer who does anything bad, there's nothing we can do about outside states.
Yes, that's what I'm just explaining to you.
Okay,
He can be a police officer again, just not in Connecticut.
right. But there's nothing that we could have done more to make
No, he
it.
resigned.
Okay. Either way, thank you. We appreciate you.
I have a question.
yes,
The administrative hearing, Is that done in an executive session or is that done in public?
It's not a public hearing.
Okay. Why then, or what is the advantage to not asking for decertification for someone who resigns under investigation versus having this, if it's executive session and very few people, you know, like hear witnesses if they chose, I don't know.
Sure, so you're saying even though someone can never be a cop again forever, why not also ask for 2 years?
No, in Connecticut.
But that would be the Connecticut
But
rule.
what if he wanted to go, if the person wanted to go to Massachusetts?
And they can do that. So every state is to their own. So if a police department in Massachusetts said, we are looking for someone who is just decertified, they can do that. There's nothing Old Saybrook or the state of Connecticut can do other than disclose our personnel records, right?
Is that legal?
What do you mean is that legal?
Harold, this is what I was trying to explain to you. Certified 2 years, cop in Connecticut again. Resign under malfeasance, is that the right word?
While under
Never,
investigation for malfeasance.
while under investigation, never again, cop in Connecticut.
I understand the in Connecticut.
Okay, regardless of what a cop does in the state of Connecticut, I'm stretching it probably, maybe not. There's nothing we can do to prevent them from getting a job anywhere else, any other state. Nothing. It doesn't matter what they do.
So basically, there would be no value to
That's what
you
she's saying.
going out to ask for the certification. Because.
There would not be. The national database just, right, the national database is just a list of decertified officers. It does not mean that those people cannot become police officers in other states. It's merely a list. And so think of it this way, everyone. If I, as the chief of police for the town of Old Saybrook, chose to bring forth a police officer and ask for them to be terminated, clearly I'm not only doing that for Old Saybrook, I'm doing that for the law enforcement community. Love me or hate me, no one can say that I want bad cops working anywhere. And so when I choose to take an action against an employee who has committed an act or acts of malfeasance, you can rest assured that I am doing everything possible to ensure that they're not only working in Old Saybrook, but they're never wearing the badge again. But I do not have control over every law enforcement agency in the United States of America.
But yes, somebody in Florida or Massachusetts could say, you know, I really don't care who works for me. I'm gonna take this guy and that guy and that guy. It doesn't really matter, right? Essentially.
That can
that's-
certainly happen.
But as long as Old Saybrook, which is our concern,
Look, it's no different than a bad doctor, a bad teacher, right? I mean, these things happen. Right? There are teachers that go from they're dismissed from districts and immediately hired somewhere else. And they have sanctions against their certification, but they're still employable. So this is how the law, this is not my rules, right? This is the law of the state of Connecticut. When we first got involved with the Harris case, I thought decertification was forever. Because that's what the word sounds like, right? And what's interesting is you can only be certified if you're currently employed by a municipal police department. So the minute you folks say you're fired, the person is technically decertified. The process to decertify is that the Police Officer Standards and Training Council will not provide a new certification for that officer within that specific period of time. In this case, 2 years. And so I have asked for a 2-year decertification. And again, that will be up to post, maybe in 6 months.
for Scarborough,
What's that?
for Scarborough.
For Mr. Zarbo, correct. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions about the process?
No, I think I got it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And I have to say, for anyone who thought differently, it's okay. because the words make it seem different, right? So if you don't read the statute and you hear the word decertify, you just take on its normal English meaning to you. You actually have to read the statute to, understand, which is not something we ask everyone to do,
This
obviously.
also sounds like it's new.
It's very new.
It's not something that's.
Look, Mr. Harris was the first contested case underneath the new Police Accountability Act for undermining public confidence in law enforcement. That's significant.
So, Chief, just in the future, I mean, with Schultz, if you could make it aware, even just say it to us.
So what I did tonight,
sooner than
well, first of all, let's hope we don't have to terminate another police officer.
that.
Right?
That's, we don't.
If we have to do so, I'm going to follow the procedure that I followed this evening,
I love that.
which was share with you the communication.
Okay,
Okay, so keep in mind, I've been a police officer, I've been connected to the Old Center Police Department since 5th grade, right? And I've seen lots of police officers come and go. In my 14 years as police chief, terminations have been few and far between, but there's been a lot of separation for malfeasance within the past year. And so the law is new, the process is new, and so the communication is also new.
I think that's really great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll keep you advised as to obviously what happens.
Appreciate it.
Were there any other personnel matters, Chief?
I don't think so. Custodian Hanley remains out on an unpaid leave. Other than that, all folks are reporting to work as they should be.
Do we have any information on Mr. Zarbo? If he's appealing this?
Oh, yes, thank you very much. So the union did file a grievance in accordance with their collective bargaining agreement to appeal the termination. The town discussed that with the union, and the town has agreed to waive that step. So the union could go right to the State Board of Mediation and Labor Relations. And there's obviously conversation with the chairman about that. Great.
All right, shall we move to professional development update?
Yeah, so let me start with something I'm pretty proud of. I don't want to embarrass him and his cohort, but Captain DePerry went to captain school, but not the double bar captain. So him and per diem patrolman Movahill attended Marine captain school, and they received their certification to be captains. So we'll continue calling Captain DePerry, but despite his request, we are not calling Patrolman Movahill Captain Movahill. But it was a pretty intensive class. It was 9 days straight, double weekends and every night. Very, very intensive immersion type training. A lot to learn. I saw some of the stuff and decided that I was correct in never wanting to be a Marine captain. But red, right, return, line, charting.
You're good.
The stars. I can throw out some other nautical terms, but seriously, it's a tremendous, it's a difficult class. There are some classes that you get to go to as a law enforcement officer that if you sit through, you now pass. This was not one of the classes. So congratulations to him and Patrolman Movahill. Captain DePerry, once again, domestic violence risk protection orders train the trainer class. He attended that. Master Sergeant DeMarco, Sergeant Walsh, and Sergeant Ciccone attended a course entitled Critical Legal Issues for Supervisors and Executives. And those are the types of classes I like to send our first line leaders to, because oftentimes they live just in Old Saybrook. Then they get to go to a professional development session where they hear from someone that has zero connection to Old Saybrook. And we're either doing things right or we're off. And they get to bring that back. And so oftentimes, more often than not, it validates how we're leading the agency or making the decisions for the agency in the manner that we're doing so, which is good. Patrolman Torje did her collect recertification. Director Gardner, he's our law enforcement agency security officer. So Sergeant Gardner had to take 2 different courses. I think I saw 2 certifications, right? 2 different courses to do that. And then everyone in the patrol division went through their annual Intoxilizer certification renewal. So that is it for professional development
I have a question.
for this month. Yes.
Captain, as in Marine captain, what does that mean for, once the boat's in the water, what does that mean in terms of staff and finances?
We now are eligible to do buffets on Marine One. How about you? No, I'm kidding. I'm still eager to go to deck 17, fresh off from the cruise. So it's just another certification, doesn't gain him any more money. But it's nice to have licensed captains on the water. So those are not our only two. Grant Westerson is another captain, and we have somebody else who I think is going out, one of the handlers is going out on their own, I think, right? Together, so Eric Swallow, yeah. So it's just a certification or a licensure that we like for people to have. It's more knowledge. And that's important to us. So anytime we can better ourselves and what we're already doing is good for us, good for the town.
Is this instructed by the Coast Guard or by the state police or?
That's why your class?
Sure, this was instructed by a nautical school, and it was at the Connecticut Marine Trades Building in Essex.
Well, at the budget meeting, I had asked you about, you stated that you had trouble getting people to, the ones driving the boat. I don't know that I understand what you need to be able to do that, job description for it, but I guess, I recommended that the pay be increased so that you would have what people are attracted to it. You went from 15 to 18. I had suggested 20, but so does that mean that Captain DePerry, if nobody else is available, Captain DePerry would be also a policeman and a captain?
So no difference. So there'll be no difference in what Captain DePerry or Patrolman Overhill do on the boat now compared to the certification that they get. So Captain DePerry and Sergeant Walsh lead the Marine Division for me. So it's nice for them both. Sergeant Walsh also has his captain's license. So it's nice for both of them to be licensed captains running that program, but it means no difference in the work that they do.
And it means that there's still a boat handler. Is that?
Sure, yeah, they can operate the boat just as they were before. So we look for professional development opportunities that are good for the employee, good for the department, good for the town. It always has to hit those three prongs for me to sign on to commit a employee to a professional development experience, whether it's 1 day or 9 intensive days or a 3-month class. And so this class hit those three prongs. And again, no difference in what they do, but there might be a little bit of a difference in how they do it because they have more education in the subject matter.
I think it's great. I'm putting it down. And
Yeah, no, I don't think you're.
curious as to how it's going to operate on a practical need.
Is there much professional development planned for the balance of the year?
So there is, some of it will not be cost related. Remember, there's two parts to the professional development budget, right? There's the tangible cost, the book or the admission cost. And then there's the money to pay people to attend professional development.
Well, because I noticed in the budget, for fiscal 23, that the numbers are up there.
Yes.
You know, we're almost tapped out at those budget line items.
And some of that is police academy tuition, right, that we weren't anticipating. And so, but again, I feel that we're in a good place. As you know, professional development is something that I prioritize. It's good.
And
So there's staffing of the road, right? The backbone of the agency is patrol, the link of the agency is dispatch, right? So both of those units have to be staffed first. And then you staff out from there. If you have enough staff and money, you have a detective division, you have canine units. We obviously robustly support our school resource officers in the DARE programs. But it all comes back to that core of, can we answer the 911 call? And so on a daily basis, when we have employees who call in sick or there's vacations, et cetera, we always make sure that we can satisfy our core mission. Professional development, while important, is above and beyond that. And so if we can't staff the road, no one's going to a class to learn how to do something better because our core responsibility is patrol.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
You received the activity report that's in your packet. And then I saw Jill, she dropped off some diapers for us, so I appreciate that. I'm not sure if anyone else did or not, but many members of the community certainly have. Our training room wall has a lot of diapers on them. There are some diapers being collected upstairs at the building department from town hall employees and contractors that have to go to the building department. So our local building official kind of assists me with that. And we currently have the Golden Diaper Challenge going on between all of our car dealers in Connecticut, so in Old Saybrook. So we told them whoever collects the most diapers out of all the car dealerships in Old Saybrook, we present them with a golden diaper, which I think is going to be a diaper spray painted gold, but I'll see what I can do in the meantime. And they would get a barbecue lunch on the PD. So we'll show up at our grill and grill some hot dogs and hamburgers, which again allows us to get out into the business community and interact with folks. So that's kind of your update on our OSPD Cares event entitled "It's Time to Do Your Duty."
Can I ask is there a size that you need more of,
So any size is great.
but are you lacking?
Well, at this point, any size is
Are you
still
sure?
good.
Okay.
Because what happens is,
But really.
yeah, so what happens is, we go to Youth and Family Services and
Okay.
Social Services. They take what they need for their social services help day. And then if we have too many size 4s and they need size 2, we go to the diaper bank and we trade some size 4s for size 2s to make sure that we meet Old Saybrook's needs.
Okay,
And then everything else goes to the diaper bank for the shoreline.
so, okay. Because I want to make sure that when my kids and I go and drop off some diapers, that you need them. You really need them.
Okay. If we're finished with that, let's go to item 4 on the agenda. Discussion and possible action to approve the new public comment and procedure bylaw as presented on January 23, 2023. May I have a motion to approve that?
I will make the motion to adopt the amended police commission public comment and procedure bylaw as presented.
Is there a second?
Second. Can I ask a quick question? You said you want to change a word?
Isn't that, okay. No, yeah.
Let me speak to this. At first, I wondered why we had to go through the first time this was read, then the discussion last time, and then postpone the vote until today. The intervening few weeks has given me a very hard object lesson into why that's a good idea. I've had constituents call to my attention the fact that what we had a consensus on at our last meeting is actually much more restrictive than our current bylaw, creating a risk in my mind that we are running even further afoul of the Constitution, and also creating a risk that we are making public comment not as useful as it could be. And my suggested answer to that is to change one word in this and to drop the word required and replace it with the word requested. That would make it conform with our current bylaw, which uses the word requested, and it would make it conform with the proposed amended bylaw that Attorney Burcham approved, which also used the word requested. So I would ask for a motion to make that substitution before we vote on the proposed amended bylaw.
No,
Where exactly is this word?
It's the third
It's
word.
something I
It
just-
says, it begins,
Number 4.
speakers are required to refrain from presentations. I would change that to speakers are requested to refrain from presentations. That makes it not a mandatory, but a softer.
You know what, I didn't print out the new ones, I'm sorry, let me look it up. I'm sorry.
Do you want a copy?
If you
Yep, I do.
go into the minutes, it's page 5.
Yes, here's a copy. Item 4.
So you're proposing to vote on this next month then?
No, I'm.
No, right now.
voting to vote on it.
But our bylaws say that we
you
can't
have
vote that way.
to have 30 days for any change or.
It's our bylaw.
And I don't think the bylaws.
No, they.
I have the bylaws, hold on.
I guess the other thing to bring up while you're going to that is that we had one of the most productive collaborative conversations we've ever had. And it worked out well, and we echoed what was in, I think, the Board of Education policy. So I'm a little taken aback that after all that great work, you hear from some constituents, and now you're making.
So Joe, what's in the Board of Ed is refrain, right?
No,
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 it
the one in
is.
the Board of Ed is required,
Required, and we're changing it to request.
requested.
Right.
Right.
And I'm just looking at the amendments to the bylaws. It says amendments to the bylaws must be proposed in writing and refer to the next
Yeah.
regular meeting of the commission. It doesn't say no amendments are permissible without referring to a meeting after that. And under Robert's rules, which regularly govern our proceeding, any motion can be amended. And if that amendment passes, then it goes back to the motion that was pending, and that motion can pass.
I respectfully disagree. It says pretty clearly that if we're going to make a change to our bylaws, it has to be proposed in writing at one meeting and voted on at the next meeting. It's pretty cut and dry.
I agree with Joe. Like, if we need to wait a month, we need to wait a month.
Oh, I don't mind waiting a month. I just want to make sure it's right, and that's
And then
what
we
I,
agree on it.
and
We agree, right? So we're changing it from refrain to
no,
request.
we're changing it from required to requested.
And Board of Ed has required.
And,
They have-
and our bylaws, as they currently exist, have requested it. And the version that our attorney, Mr. Burcham, approved has the word requested.
Speakers are required to refrain from presentations that discuss, that's the Board of Ed, that I'm reading right now.
That's correct.
Right, that is what the Board of Ed has.
And we,
We want to take that word out and substitute the word requested
Request.
for it. And
If you look at our current, I'm sorry,
what I fall back on is the fact that everything that Burcham has approved going forward has had the word request or requested in it, as opposed to required. So this would be a part, if we voted in required, it would be a part of from what Burcham has amended for us.
is this a big deal for anybody? If it is, I'm not like putting it down at all because
it's a big deal for me.
it is to change requests. Okay. For me personally, speakers are required to refrain Board of Ed. That's what I'm reading. When I read Board of Ed, I think of students, like children. So, we are required to refrain from talking, even if that's not what the rest of it says. Like, I'm thinking they're talking about students.
No, they're specifically talking about employees in the Board of Ed.
Oh.
Read the whole sentence. Right, the whole sentence.
From presentations that discuss specific employees of the board.
Right, has nothing to do with kids. So,
Okay.
So we're in the middle of a discussion on whether or not we're passing the bylaw, so we need to vote on that.
So are we gonna change it from required to request? Is everybody,
But if we do, then we're gonna read through it again.
That's
And then-
okay,
No,
but like-
I'm explaining, you just asked a question. We're gonna read through it again and then vote on it, but I think we're in the middle of that motion first, so we have to decide that we're not passing it and then make a motion to change it. Or I don't even know if we have to make a motion to change it because.
okay,
we're changing it.
I was actually just asking if everybody was okay with that.
so can we just talk procedurally? Because I,
Yeah.
whatever you do, requested, required, whatever. Every day is Monday, it seems. But I think we should talk about it procedurally, right? So on your agenda, whatever you do, let's do it right,
Yeah,
right? Okay. So on your agenda item is discussion and possible action to approve the new public comment and procedure bylaw as presented on January 23rd, 2023. On January 23rd, 2023, in the meeting minutes that you just adopted, this commission made a motion unanimously to move the current document to this meeting, to this action item. Okay, so if you change one word, then you must move this
mhm.
in accordance with your bylaws to the next meeting, just like you did last meeting to this meeting. Again, whatever you want to do with the words, but if you're making a change, you have to follow the same procedure. My only concern is that we're now halfway through the meeting agenda and we haven't added an agenda item to redo this, because the agenda item specifically is to approve or not approve what you carried to this meeting. And again, I just want to do it right.
So we can simply make a.
So we
motion
can
to
just
that
add,
item.
yeah.
If you want to do that halfway through your agenda, normally that's done at the beginning. of the
Here's my
meeting.
suggestion, and I think this is consistent with Robert's rules. We vote on the amendment, the proposed amendment to the proposed amended bylaw. And if that motion carries, then we vote on the amended bylaw at our next meeting.
Okay.
You do not have, I don't believe that you have an amendment changing the word. You talked about it. I don't believe you have a motion and a second amendment.
That's correct.
that
That's
word.
correct. That hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
So you could, the commission procedurally, again, I'm not getting in the fray of required versus requested. That's your deal. Procedurally, it's my obligation to, as staff, to advise the commission that you could either choose not to do anything with this, right? Because it's discussing impossible action. So you can choose to take no action on what you forwarded to this meeting, add an agenda item, although it's halfway through the meeting. That's, if you feel that's correct, okay. To then forward this to vote on your amended one, changing the word to the next meeting for, as it lists here tonight, for possible discussion and possible action.
Well, the possible action on the current motion would be, on the current bylaw, would be to amend it and refer it to the next motion.
No, because the agenda item, sir, is only discussion and possible action to approve.
So that would be implicit in that is we're not approving it.
Right, you can't change it. There's nothing here that allows you to edit that.
Okay, so is it all right if we amend the bylaw to if we amend the agenda to amend the bylaw and next month we will have the vote?
I
Can we
don't
just,
I don't think we even need to go through that rigmarole. I think we can just have a motion. We're under Robert's rules here.
Well, you are, except for the current bylaw guidance, right? So remember, your bylaws say.
It's the last page.
6,
It's
it's called conduct of business / parliamentary procedures
So
and rules of
Joe, we
order.
just need to withdraw this motion and then we need to make a motion.
we'll just
to add
vote
an
on it
agenda
next
item
meeting, which is
to
totally fine.
change.
Yeah, to change the one word for, so we're gonna amend the bylaw. Next meeting, we will vote it in, okay? As long as everybody's okay with the word.
Well,
Good.
as long as 5 people are okay with it, actually probably 4 for amending it, but we need 5 to ultimately pass it.
I would like to stay on our collaborative streak that we have personally. but
So
that's just me.
I am fine
Apparently.
with either.
So under Renee's suggestion, Joe would have to withdraw his second, and whoever made the motion would have to withdraw their motion. And then you can choose just not to take action on that. You could vote in what you carried, or you could vote it down. Those are the options you have with this agenda item.
With that agenda item, but then we can make a motion to add an agenda item to amend the bylaw,
To present
to present the,
Correct, yeah.
yes, an amendment to the bylaw.
So we should follow what what we used last meeting. Because that put us right where we are today, which is proper procedure. For the agenda item.
Well, okay,
So the agenda item last meeting that got us here is discussion and possible action to refer the public comment and procedure bylaw change to the next regular meeting for action. So if you put that on today's agenda, you could change your word, you can collaborate, change your word, and vote to send that to the next regular meeting in accordance with your bylaws.
well, I welcome a motion that we amend our agenda to,
So before you do that,
So
he
let me
needs to withdraw,
Withdraw my second.
And I'll withdraw the motion.
because Jen needs to capture that in the minutes. And so by consensus, the commission is not taking any action on agenda item 6.
Yeah.
That's not for me to say, I'm saying, is that,
no, that is correct, because otherwise I would have to vote against it, and I hate to do that.
so what I'm trying to do is not put everyone in a no voting
Yeah.
scenario here for no reason.
All right, so
So
I
now,
understand, we agreed to change required to request it?
no, we have,
So hold on, so
now we have to amend our agenda so that we can talk about that. Are we May I have a motion that we amend our agenda to add tonight the suggested change of the word required to the word requested?
So, Mr. Chairman, your motion, just to make sure that we're correct, your motion would be to add an item to the agenda for this regular meeting that states discussion and possible action to refer the public comment and procedure bylaw change to the next regular meeting for action. The commission would then vote to place that on the agenda. And then you have to say where you want it in the agenda. And then you will talk, you'll discuss, you'll collaborate, change your word, and then you vote to send that to the next meeting.
Yeah, we will do that right now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help you with, sir, what I'm trying to do is respectfully help you with the
Correctly worded.
the verbiage you need for the motion.
I welcome any help that lets us do this.
That's what I'm trying to do for you.
May I have a motion to amend our agenda to
Let me give it, I can give it to you.
to take,
Just.
to discuss and take possible action on amended language for the proposed bylaw.
We just want to.
This is what you want to read right here. That's what you need to do, what you want to do, whether I agree with it or not.
Actually, all
that's
you have
what
to say
happens.
is, I move to amend, and then what you want to do.
No, that's not correct. He has to add this to the agenda.
Based on this.
So there's a motion in a second. Right. I'm not arguing what you want to do. I'm trying to get you there.
It's always so complicated.
It is. I didn't make these.
Different websites are definitely. Okay.
Do you see where it is?
Well, I have.
I see where it is, but
I moved.
I don't want to refer discussion of this change to the next meeting. I want to.
No, that's not what that does. That's not what that does. That motion is from last meeting's minutes that got you here today. So had your word been requested last time
You could vote today.
under that heading. So you need to do that to do what you want to do.
We're gonna make that motion, and when we discuss it, we're gonna say the change that we want to make.
Exactly. And then you're going to refer that to the next meeting by a vote.
All right. I request a motion that we amend the agenda to provide for tonight, discussion and possible action to refer the public comment and procedure bylaw change to the next regular meeting for action.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now let's discuss it.
Okay, so now you're adding that as an agenda item. Obviously, right away in the agenda is where you want it.
6A.
And is there any, may I have a motion to amend the proposed bylaw, amended bylaw, to substitute the word requested for the word required?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
May I ask a procedural
I
question?
thought it was required to requested.
It's changing required to requested.
Correct. So what happens if a speaker does not honor the request to refrain?
Then depending on the nature of the violation, the chair would say, let me remind you of something. Or the chair might say, could you please frame your comments in general terms rather than with reference to a specific employee? But what concerns me is under the language, speakers are required to refrain from presentations that discuss specific employees, regardless of whether or not the employee is identified in the presentation by name or by another reference that tends to identify an individual. So anything that people would want to comment on is the result of a decision or an act. And decisions and acts are necessarily made by a person or people. And this is not such a big department that you can't probably identify with reasonable effort who any person or actor is, decision maker or actor. So read literally, this would preclude any comment about anything that happens in the police department. And that can't be the intent of public comment. So I think if we have the word requested, the chair has control, but he is not obligated to say, is it possible that this might lead to the identity of an actor? And if so, I'm required to shut the conversation down. The chair is allowed a little broader discretion.
Yeah, so look, my only concern that I would like to voice on behalf of all the members of the department, who obviously reviewed what got sent here and everyone was fine with it, right? We had great collaborative discussion. I'm not so sure everyone's gonna be fine with requested because whomever the chairman is, and remember, you're creating bylaws, not just for this commission, but for future commissions, right? Like 12 commandments, lots of popes, still the same 12 commandments, right? So bylaws shouldn't be changing every time a commission changes. And so what you're saying to the personnel, in my opinion, that I just want you to be mindful of, is that whoever the sitting chair is can decide under this word on an individual basis how much someone can talk about someone. And I don't think that that's healthy, being the leader of our personnel. And my guess is our personnel are not going to find that to be healthy. There's got to be a reason why the Board of Education uses required in this sentence instead of requested. We've spoken a lot about property rights of our employees and their right to adjudication. And so imagine having a job that once a month, someone can come and just say you're doing a bad job for everyone to hear and for the minutes to capture and to be on video. It's tough.
We've heard that at length, and I understand where you're coming from. But you also have to understand, and I think our employees have to understand, that the First Amendment does apply to public comment. And you have to have parameters, yes. You don't want it to be nothing but a dump on somebody's session. But you have to allow the public to offer comment that is critical. And critical is also going to include critical of something. That something is going to be conduct, decisions, actions, and those are things that people make.
And so you've heard me say, right, you've heard me say, because we're changing this and this means something. Again, I said all these things that got us to where we were here, and then we've just decided not to accept that, changing one word. But you've heard me continuously say that I do believe that the public has the absolute right to come to a police commission meeting and stand up and say, the budget's too high or low, there's too many officers, you shouldn't be going to medical, whatever they want to say. They don't have the right to talk about the performance of an employee. That violates an employee's rights. And I just want the commission to be mindful of that.
Look at what you just said. Who creates the budget? People in the department. So if somebody says the budget's too high, that's saying somebody screwed up.
Well, that would be the commission,
Okay,
because the
wait.
commission approves the
Alright, stop.
budget.
Well, that would.
Okay, you guys, listen, honestly, so the thing is, nobody is coming to the meetings right now and talking down on anybody. And if they do come, I need you to trust that not just him, but all of us are gonna step up and make it stop. About any of us. I mean, online in general is way worse than what we have gotten here.
Listen,
And online hits more people than what we have gotten here.
but this is the public police commission meeting.
It is the
And
public,
so
but
while speakers have First Amendment rights, there are obviously parameters that are allowed to be, right, 3 minutes. You can picket on the sidewalk for more than 3 minutes, but you can't do so in our meetings.
exactly.
And so there are rules that govern the free speech that we permit our audience. As you know,
Chief,
you don't even have to have public comment, which I would be
Let me
against.
interrupt, because the example you use, 3 minutes, that's a time, place, and manner description, which is standard First Amendment law.
Yeah.
But in a public comment, you can limit time, place, and manner. You can't have disruptive speech. You can put a limit on that it's 30 minutes total or 3 minutes for a speaker. Those are fine limits. But what you cannot do is limit the content.
So you tell me the Board of Education, which I think is the most overly legally analyzed section of society, is wrong by having that required word with respect to their employees? There's got to be a reason.
I don't know, if a teacher was being racist in a classroom, I would totally stand up at the board of ed and be like, hey, this teacher did this and I don't care. So, but that's the point, is like, you guys aren't doing that, right? So we have nothing to worry about.
Jessica, the rules that we make, we have to make for everyone.
And no, but we're making them for you guys and we're making them for our citizens. to respect you guys, because they will respect you if they have a requested 3 minutes. And if that ever gets out of hand, we will, like, what is that word? Circumvent? We'll come back and we'll readdress it.
Right, so we're not talking about the 3 minutes, right?
No, but we're talking about the
I'm just
requested, which is 3
responding to your
minutes.
example. I think we've gone over this enough.
Yes, but just one other thing. As the bylaws are written right now, it says the word speakers are requested to refrain.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I agree. Doesn't mean it's perfect. You're changing them.
well, so what's the difference?
But
if
we're keeping the same requested.
carrying That's personally, between the fact that it's here in this language, in this document, and the fact that Bertram has, this is the word he really wanted throughout all of the different iterations. I think that word should be changed.
And that was a deliberate choice. That was not an accident that it appeared there. That was a deliberate choice that Mr. Burcham made. I know because we discussed that specifically.
Right, but just so everyone understands, the way we got here is we all read the Board of Education thing and said it was great.
Yes.
And that's how it got there.
But how,
I didn't try to sneak in required.
but how did you get there? How did you get in the past one where it said requested and you were okay with it?
I was not okay with it. I've never been a fan of the word requested at all.
Okay, so
Just telling you
can
because.
we
because
Google
when
another
you-
word for requested?
No,
No. You should use the word that you're comfortable with. All I'm doing is I'm saying, I'm not jumping up down and saying, don't do it. What I'm saying is, it does leave some ambiguity that our employees may be
Yes,
concerned about.
and-
And I just want you to be aware of that.
Bylaws are not perfect.
And especially in the First Amendment context, they are not to be ironclad.
Well, even in the, just to be clear, when you ask people to identify where they live, no one's got to tell you where they live.
Nobody
They don't
does.
have.
Like, I don't even know why that's in there. Anyone in the world can come in here. Let's go back to COVID when, people from Montana are signing on and giving comments. No one's got to say where they live in Old Saybrook, or even if they live in Old
These
Saybrook.
bylaws need work generally.
Yeah,
So we're trying to make a dent in it right now. And I just think that we should move on and get that
Right.
language taken care of.
So you just kind of dropped this on us tonight, so I haven't processed through. How about the word expected?
Where? Oh,
Instead of required,
that's not a bad compromise, to be honest.
expected, like that's our expectation. And then if the chairman, whatever year, whoever it is in the chair, has to redress the public comment, well, you're not meeting our expectations. That would just be a suggestion to
so speakers are expected to,
expected, that's our expectation.
no, wait, speakers are wait, tell me where.
I think.
No, I love it, but where?
The first line where you have it.
So speakers are
expected
expected
refrain.
to refrain from presentations that is.
I think that's a phenomenal personnel compromise.
Wow,
It does exactly what requested says, but we can say to our personnel, hey, it's the police commission's expectations that people will do this.
he Googled another word like I
No,
just
I
said,
did not.
did you know that? Yeah, that was great. No, I love it. It's great.
Motion on the floor right now.
No,
We're in discussion, so we're good right now.
No, I love the expected. I really do, Joe. Thank you.
I think that'd be a great compromise.
I think so too.
So
So if we follow what we did last time, I think we just kind of took a informal poll. I don't believe it was a.
No, it was a vote.
Okay.
Jill, the secretary of the commission, read the proposal in, and there was a motion to move that to the next meeting for action. I think I looked it up, but I gave you my minutes.
If everybody seems like they're comfortable and agree on this, can we waive the bylaw piece about having to move it to the next meeting?
There's no procedure to.
We're
Let's just
going to be talking
yeah.
about other bylaws next meeting, so.
Well,
I know your
I just,
frustration.
I want to see.
She's gonna have anxiety for the whole-
Like,
Well, we're going to get correspondence done immediately.
Yeah.
After,
Unless there's no change, right?
no change.
well,
So the operation would support.
I think
That change.
expected is fine.
what is,
You don't need the sheet, obviously.
Do you want, wait, do you want yours here? Speakers are expected. Give that to Jill. I took hers.
It's just here.
And so here I have the motion
Okay.
from last time. Do you want the motion from last time?
You want to read this?
So
Speakers.
procedurally, what we did last time was, the secretary read the entire bylaw into the record. Like you did. And then after you read it, that was your motion.
And I think we can just read paragraph 4. We don't have to read the entire public comment. Again, that's what we did.
All right. Speakers are expected to refrain from presentations that discuss specific employees of the Department of Police Services, regardless of whether or not the employee is identified in the presentation by name or by another reference that tends to identify an individual. Members of the public are encouraged to submit commendations, comments, or complaints concerning specific employees to the chief of police or to the police commissioner. All right, so then I move to so I move this amendment as read for public comment, conduct and procedure number 4 to the next meeting for possible adoption, for possible action to adopt.
Second, the entire bylaw. Adopt the
The
entire bylaw.
entire bylaw.
You don't want to adopt just
But
number
we're
4.
just changing number 4.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Great.
Thanks, Joe. We saved that one.
Let's move to item 7, discussion and possible action to approve a new police commission correspondence bylaw as presented on January 23, 2023. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on this one? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Congratulations.
I suggest we take a 5-minute recess.
Oh, please.
Let's move on to item 8, commission workshop. This is the dealing with the bylaw amendment. Responsibilities of commissioners, and I would add the language to inform themselves. And this is to replace the current bylaw titled Investigation of Personnel Related Matters. As you know, my purpose in suggesting this is to have this bylaw be positive, that the commission should keep informed and keep an open mind. I took out the prohibition on investigations because I think that prohibition belongs in the revised citizen complaint bylaw. I would put it there. And the second part of the proposal, referring to the language beginning, commissioners may be called to act in a quasi judicial capacity. This is to set forth make an accurate statement of the recusal disqualification standard in Connecticut. Again, I would remind us that this exact language has been approved by our counsel, Mr. Burcham. With that, I would welcome a motion to approve this and a second, and then we can have a lengthy collaboration and discussion. May I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, open for discussion. Does anybody have any they would like to take with this proposal? Start with any commissioner and then we'll ask the chief.
That's.
No? Hearing none, chief? Oh,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
chief, did you have any thoughts you'd like to share?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to reiterate some of the points that I made at your last meeting regarding this bylaw. So if you bear with me, let me just read that into the record. Once again, I'll summarize it though. So the title of the bylaw I find concerning. And what I said to you last time is it seems counterintuitive to the facts that 1, the commission is the unit of authority. 2, individual commissioners have no authority. 3, individual commissioners should not conduct investigations, even in the slightest bit. And that 4, that individual police commissioners and the commission as a whole do or does not possess operational responsibilities. The language as presented provides an illegitimate authority to an individual elected official. It may foster rogue actions as boundaries and responsibilities are not detailed in the bylaw. Rather, the language leaves it to each police commissioner, again, not the folks sitting here, but future police commissioners, self-interpretation of laws and ordinances that govern their own authority. So in other words, you're saying in this bylaw, hey, make sure you do your job within your purview of state law and town charter. So you're asking them, a newly elected official, to interpret their own job through their own interpretation of law and charter. Quick example, decertification, right? So a lot of people thought decertification meant one thing and actually meant something else. And unless we fully explain things, that I don't think it's a good thing. So what I asked folks to do is I said to you in my communication on January 23rd, that I think it is a very good idea that you're addressing this bylaw. But I had asked you to expound on the responsibilities of the commissioners. Say you got to come to meetings, that you have to declare any ethical things. A future commissioner owns the Chevy dealership in town and we want to buy Chevys, they would have to recuse themselves. And so I referred you to the Board of Education's 9,000 series, where they really detail things in this type of heading. Adherence to the bylaws, decorum at meetings, communicating with constituents, communicating with fellow commissioners, conflicts of interest, and confidentiality. So I think you're on the right track, but with all due respect, I don't think this says anything at all. And my concern that I have, and you've heard it from counsel in different viewpoints, is when we're conducting an internal investigation, we don't want you to be a witness to what's going on, and we don't want you to be an investigator. Because if when we write our report that obviously goes to the person that we're bringing up on charges, if your role in the investigation is witness or investigator, the union will most certainly say you should not be able to sit in judgment. And I wouldn't want any language at all in any bylaw that would preclude you from doing the job that you were elected to do. And so I'm not saying don't investigate, right? We talked about this. Someone comes to you and says, oh my God, I had a horrible experience with officer so-and-so. You say, oh my God, what happened? And they tell you. You say, whoa, here's a couple things we can do. You can go to the police department. I can go to the police department with you. I'll call the chief myself. You can make an anonymous complaint. You can do that. That is where it should stop. The minute you start saying, oh my God, was your child in the car with you? Who else saw this? This is not good. That you've become a witness and an investigator, because we're gonna have to talk to you about that. And we're gonna have to talk to the person who made the complaint. Hey, what did you say to Commissioner so-and-so? And we go to the commissioner. Hey, what did they say? Just in case there's conflicting facts. And so I would want no one here to put themselves in jeopardy of doing what you were elected to do. So I think the track is good. I think it just needs a lot more work, but it really doesn't say anything, right? Commissioners are advised to remember that are usually 2 or more sides to any issue. Well, I would hope that you know that as you sit in judgment like you have this year. I don't think you need a bylaw to tell you that you have to listen to both sides of any issue. Commissioners may be called to act in a quasi-judicial capacity, but may not serve in such a capacity if he or she demonstrates either actual bias against the officer in question or prejudgment of the issue in question. Who determines that?
So I need to cut you off. I actually completely
done.
agree. I completely agree with you. And I think that the way that it's worded is completely like, it's just very, nonchalant, like,
I don't know what it's trying to do.
But however, I disagree wholeheartedly, like to the bone with the word investigation or investigator or anything with that investigate. We need to think of a different word. And I think minds will wrap around it better. And I know you love that word, but it's just exploration, inquisition, anything.
Stay away from inquisition.
Okay.
That might not be.
Well, either way, we have to, I think honestly, that will just like what Joe said, when he changed the word to expected, it just, the words can do a lot. So, I think we need to change that. And yeah, I think
The
that
word
this is,
investigations doesn't appear here.
well, but just in general, just
The word
responsibilities, because responsibilities of commissioners, we also, this is very not, it's just,
So let me ask you
What are
one
we
question.
doing
What does
here?
this say?
well, yeah, what is, I agree with what the chief is saying. Actually,
What I am trying to say.
Yeah.
Is that commissioners should pay attention and keep themselves informed. For example, Ms. Stengel Pond complained about a specific intersection. I think I'd like to go take a look at that intersection. That's keeping myself informed as to, what concerns our citizens. And I don't think we need to have, the commission en masse troop down there to look at it.
Well, it'll be a meeting. You have to have a meeting to do that.
Yeah. But I don't think that there's a thing wrong with a commissioner trying to keep informed and get informed. As to any matter within our purview pursuant to state law and the town charter. Now, that's
Whose interpretation is that though?
in the
each
first
individual-
In the first instance, it's going to be the individual,
Right.
but
So in other words, you're creating language that you can always say, well, I felt it was in my purview.
sure.
it's just,
That's irresponsible.
it's just completely not,
That's totally irresponsible.
it's
I
completely
don't think- I
up
just-
in the air is what it is.
So let me kind of reflect.
Please.
Between last time and.
It's
and
up
this
in the
time.
air.
I don't think there's a lot of real meat with what's here. It's very little. And I don't think whether we approve or not, it's kind of irrelevant. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, let me continue, right? So at this point, with the time that we've spent together, we all kind of know our roles and responsibilities and what we should do and should not do. I believe that at least we're getting there. I would like, if we're going to spend the time and energy to have a nice collaborative discussion about responsibilities, and I think the chief alluded to this, and I think I said it last time, I think maybe Jill said it last time, that maybe, and I'm not saying adopt the Board of Ed model as is, but something that talks more of a 10,000 foot view. Oh, and let's do it with the lens of, let's assume that in 2 years, 4 years, whatever, none of us are here. Right? We all won the mega bucks and moved to private islands, right? So nobody's here. And what would be helpful to a new commissioner in terms of responsibilities and expectations?
That's interesting.
That would be, I think, worthy of our time. Whether we whittle back and forth on this one paragraph, I don't think that's worthy of our time.
Thank you. That was great. It really was. I mean that.
Any other comments?
We're not voting on this tonight,
No,
right?
we're not.
Yeah.
Exploration is better than investigation.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Jill. Would you be willing to take a stab at a broader, what's your experience on the Board of Ed?
My experience, I actually like the language in the Board of Ed's here. There, I mean, those items, and I know that we talked about this at one point. My whole issue is this bylaw was supposed to replace the one on page 9 of the bylaws, investigation of personnel related matters, which I really still have a problem with the original bylaws. I mean, maybe this doesn't have enough meat. Maybe we could improve this with some of the Board of Ed language. But I really want to see that. Bylaw.
So Jill, let me make a suggestion, even though I don't endorse what I'm going to tell you. This is something you want to do. I'm going to give you the path to do it. You put a motion on the table to repeal that bylaw. You don't have to replace it. You can just strike it.
We talked about that actually last time around. It was raised.
And
I
so
don't know if anybody remembers.
here's my suggestion, procedurally, okay? You have another bylaw that obviously we want to, I have a path that I'd like to take, maybe the chairman has a different path, but whatever. In that bylaw, it's going to talk about employee investigations. We can all agree to that, right? To what extent, hopefully it's still to be seen, but we're going to talk about that. What I would do is when that bylaw happens in whatever form, at that same meeting, you make a motion to repeal that. I think that that language, even though you don't like it, is necessary to be present until that new bylaw comes out. They say the same thing, but there's a positive twist to it. But the meaning is the same. So what I would do is, hopefully going to continue to have some offline conversations with the chairman. Hopefully I'm going to have the opportunity to negotiate an executive session. We do that, and then we forward those two things, that new bylaw on employee investigations and the revocation of the current bylaw. We do that in tandem. And I think that makes great procedural sense. You don't have to write something that really doesn't say anything to get rid of something you don't like. You can just get rid of something you don't like.
I think it's truly important, though, maybe Jill will agree that we just want everybody to be, on board-ish with what we're doing.
Yeah, I'd love to see, not to put you on the spot, but you have experience in a different life on a board of education that's highly regulated. I would love to see you take a stab at a new
Yeah.
responsibility.
Joe has current.
Yes.
Maybe they can work together.
That'd be awesome. Maybe
Right,
they could
you
both
could-
take a stab at
You
writing.
could right now very easily create a subcommittee of 2 just to prepare a draft of responsibilities of commissioners for next meeting.
Do it.
And then you have something with meat to actually discuss and move forward on. And it's bipartisan.
Jill, would you be willing to do that? Jill,
Well, of course, I'd be willing to do anything that moves.
can we do that?
Direction.
I move
And
to
as
create
the
it.
chair, I would appreciate being a part of the subcommittee.
Anything would be helpful. Are you willing to
I am, just logistically,
time wise?
March happens to be a crazy month for me, for many reasons. I'm definitely in principle. PLE, not PAL. Sorry. I'm on board with it for sure. So I just gotta figure out how to.
Why don't you create a first draft?
I can create a draft.
Yeah.
And share it email wise. But you won't look through it, don't necessarily have to.
I mean, if you're gonna follow the 9,000 series,
Right.
right? Parameters, you live that now. It shouldn't be a lot of discussion to bring it here to have discussion.
I think that is a worthy.
So I would just make a motion to establish a subcommittee to create a new responsibilities of commissioners bylaw for presentation at the next meeting.
No, I think we
Are you guys okay with that, Jill? You're
need a
okay?
motion on this.
Do we have a motion to table?
No, we don't.
Because we're in a workshop. We're just gonna discuss. There's no action item under it.
Oh, right.
So we don't need to deny anything.
But you do have to create the
We
subcommittee
do have to create a subcommittee.
just to allow the Republicans and Democrats to work together in a meeting.
But Jill, are you okay with that? Like, you can handle it? You're good?
Yes, of course.
Okay, no, I know you
I
can't.
think it's gonna be a lot of editing. Like, I really don't.
No, it's,
Just wanna make sure.
there's actually, there's about 5 or 6 points right up in that one.
Right. And again, that's
Okay.
been vetted significantly. Right, so.
So long as we are looking towards that future, and I think that's a good place to look.
Yeah. So you gotta do the motion to create the subcommittee.
I want to invite a motion that we establish a subcommittee to look at a
Expanded version.
An expanded,
Create a draft.
create a draft of an expanded bylaw of responsibility of commissioners. Responsibilities of commissioners.
I will move that.
I will second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And you're going to appoint yourself, the secretary
The
of the minute.
three members of the commission, of the subcommittee would be Commissioner Massaro, Commissioner Laura Francesco, and the chair.
Now that's all.
Next item, I just wanted to share with everybody the proposed revised citizen complaint bylaw, which is not up for discussion tonight. And all I have done is transpose the definition of investigation, the ban on investigations, into item paragraph 5 of the citizen complaint bylaw. So that when we get to that, we have a definition of what is an investigation that is prohibited. And Chief, because there's no discussion on it, I hope you're not feeling pressure to.
Well, I don't think it should have been released, right? I think I've been very clear about that.
Yeah.
I think that when you're negotiating on my conditions of employment, there's ways to do that. And that, as I've asked with the evaluation, I've asked for this for many, many times, that it start with a discussion in executive session. And I don't know why we can't do that, but clearly chose not to.
This is. Next item, report of the ad hoc committee to develop an evaluation instrument.
Simply put, the commission proposed the draft tool and sent it via email. Everyone should have received it. And we will take up this discussion at a later date. Perhaps one of our next meetings. We have yet to talk about how we're going to do that. But that is on the
Radar.
on the radar. Thank you.
Any questions?
That would be an executive session discussion, I'm assuming.
Well,
I don't think so. I've checked with Tom Hennick at the Freedom of Information Commission. And he advises that if we were actually evaluating the chief, that would be an executive session. But if we are discussing how we're going to evaluate, what the going in proposal is for negotiating with the chief, that would be in public session. When we get
Perhaps
to
it
the
could
point,
be, but I recommend that we, and I've said this before, whenever we talk about the chief's evaluation, I think we need to start in executive session.
But Tom Hennick specifically was here and said that if it's just for creating a tool, that you have to do it in public session.
So if I could just say something.
We've had that discussion too many times.
So if the commission is just creating a tool,
a proposed tool,
you can, well, they're just creating a tool and you can certainly do it in open session. If you're creating a tool that you're going to use to negotiate with me, you absolutely can do it in public session, but it's bizarre. So think about contract negotiations, because that's what this is. This is an item in my employment agreement. The Board of Selectmen doesn't say at a public meeting, we're going to go into negotiations in private with the union, but here's what we're going to talk about and offer them in public session. And so if we're going in to negotiate the instrument, you will be releasing what you want the instrument to be to the public prior to negotiation, putting undue pressure on that private negotiation. No employee negotiates in public. None. And so if this is a tool intended for me, I would respectfully ask that you discuss it in executive session. I don't have to be in the room. You can exclude me. But I don't think details of an evaluation instrument, which is clearly part of my employment contract to be negotiated, should be discussed in open session prior to you negotiating with me. I think that's an improper format, just the wrong path.
So if we were to have, because I think we should have an executive meeting, just us, all, like the commission just on this. If we were to have that first and then we did public, would you feel comfortable with that?
No,
Because you would need your own private too?
the commission is obligated under my employment contract to negotiate with me on this matter.
In executive.
Negotiations normally happen in executive session. Employees you can't find a video on the town library of any of our unions or any of our employees with personal service contracts negotiating with their hierarchy in public session. No, it's just not done.
Yeah.
Right? And so what I'm saying is you guys, the subcommittee's done its work. It's now forwarded to the commission. Okay? That should be an executive session when you folks collaborate. You get one meeting, you have 15 meetings, no one cares. You can say you're not invited into executive session. I think you shouldn't invite me into executive session. This is the commission's product that they eventually will then call me into executive session and say, we'd now like to negotiate. Here is our first proposal. More often than not, employees don't take the first proposal. Right?
That would be my experience.
Correct. So if anyone thinks that they're going to have this meeting and then say here, and I'm going to be like, that's fantastic. I want to lower your expectations,
Could you?
but I think that should happen in executive session.
I think the discussion happens in executive session, and I'll go back to Mr. Hennick and see if he's amenable to having the commission debate not be in public session. But his word to me so far has been, if it's the creation of an instrument, that's public session. I've got to go back and sound him out again.
Or
Right
is
now, I
there,
have
is
to-
there a way to please both sides? Like if we do that, which is fine, that actually sounds fine. It's
That
the way
was my
it's-
original.
Right.
That's the way it's done.
right, but can we then do in the public, like, okay, this is what we've done so far, you know, hey, just, you
I
know,
think that whatever comes as a result of negotiation should most certainly. be
like
reported to the
negotiation
public.
one, negotiation
No, no, no,
two.
no, no.
Oh, you're saying that we
It's all
keep
set up.
everything private for however many months it takes
That's how
Forever.
negotiation, that's how labor negotiations.
for the
happen.
rest of eternity until
Jessica, come on,
it's, well, I'm just, I mean, it's been
seriously,
a
let's
year.
just, please.
So the thing of it is.
I'm being
this
very
is all-
serious,
This is all new tech.
actually.
And I think everybody needs to appreciate that, try and figure out how we're gonna navigate it so everybody can get their piece. But,
And we comply with FOIA.
well, I was FOIA as well, you know, that's also another thing.
So with all due respect, it's not new for me, because I do labor relations all day long with the police department.
Hello, but
Yeah.
it's new for us.
For you, right, which is why I'm trying to say,
The nature of an executive session, if appropriate, we know we can't just go in on a whim. Changes the way we are able to interact with each other in a way that can be very productive if we're trying to get something accomplished.
So my thought was, and I've been just kind of going back and forth with this a lot, is that the commission has the documents now to look through. What if the next step would be the discussion with you and the negotiation piece?
so I would say you're missing a step because only 3 people have collaborated on the project. I think the commission, so the subcommittee has forwarded something to the whole commission,
Yes.
right?
The subcommittee.
So now-
has spoken.
Right, so now the commission needs to meet and talk about what the subcommittee's given them.
But the sticking point with that is the FOIA piece.
It's not. I believe it's all in how you present the question. So this is labor negotiations. If I was a member of a union, which I'm not, it would be a non-meeting and we could all meet on it. Remember, like grievance meetings, all that, you can meet. It's a non-meeting because it goes back to the collective bargaining statutes. My employment contract is my employment contract, not a collective bargaining agreement because I'm not in a union. But it does detail that this is a matter subject to negotiations.
So you're saying cast it as. the
Legal
formula-
strategy
the
concerning the creation
The
of.
formulation
and
of
you're fine.
negotiating strategy.
Correct.
Yes.
That's what you should do. The commission, the 7 of you, without me, should be having conversations about what you're going to present me. Then you would present me with something and I would come in and I would negotiate with you. But until the commission's ready to do that, you should have me in an executive session. That should be your deal all day long.
And that could be a special meeting, so we don't.
Sure. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just all about procedure
No, it's about framing.
and procedure, right?
Okay. Any other discussion on the evaluation?
I think you should thank the three people of, including yourself, who,
Well, thank us.
well, it's, you did a lot of work.
Mostly Jill.
Well, no, Jessica also started the process.
You did, that's right. Let's move on to our next item, correspondence. I have correspondence that was received by
Mr. Von Bassel.
Mr. Von Dassel, if you could pass that down.
You?
Here. Oh, you have it again?
I just think it should be noted that the correspondence was received and disseminated amongst the board members.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought you wrote it for me. I'm like, what you?
I did not, it was sent to me on a personal email, not on a
Oh,
town web email, and it was a business email, not my, I don't know, it was just a very odd thing to get.
you know this.
For the record, it's an email dated February 7, 2023 from a Mr. Kevin Blackett. I have nothing else. But
You know what else?
And share.
Also, there was that correspondence where the gentleman was challenging me on not taking the appropriate action for the officer that resigned under investigation. And I sent a couple emails clarifying some of the misconceptions, and after everything was clarified, that person chose never to communicate with me again. So,
There's another one too.
with that,
Yeah, the most recent one, right?
Which one is that?
I don't know his name. I want to say John.
I think
Morris.
Carl was sharing this one because it came to him.
This one.
It just came to me, so
Yes.
I was asked to share it with the board,
Right.
so.
I don't share everything that the board already, the commission already has.
right.
Oh,
Okay,
But this one didn't go to the whole commission. I don't believe.
does anyone have anything else in the way of correspondence?
Yeah, I wanna, yes. This one was about an individual whom I don't even know if the person lives in town. About including, information about, addiction and detox help as part of our, website. I don't think anything's been done. She uses a reference in Washington State and in Ohio.
about that.
Yeah, we get those all the time.
I mean, I don't think we should do it. That's-
Yeah, no, so you're gonna get, because you guys have your email address now, you're gonna get patch requests from all over the world. You're going to get, please add me to your website. I offer this service, I offer that service. Those things go to those general emails, all the time. You're gonna get some people that make some, sadly, not a lot of sense in their email. You're gonna read it 3 times and wonder if you're, under the influence of alcohol, ecstasy, or something else. And that's just what happens on public emails.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to say I didn't want to do it. Not that I had the power, but I think it was.
We're in good time, Mr. Chairman, because I just got notice from the state that the snow should begin around 9. So if we do this right,
school's already been canceled.
We are at the point of our agenda with comments from the public, and we still have some avid members of the public with us. Any comments from the floor?
I'd like to comment. My name's Mark Ann. I appreciate especially the bipartisan efforts to change bylaws and make it more accessible. There's, in these meetings over the last few years that I've been attending, it does seem like it's a fight from the public's perspective to know anything. It seems like there's a tendency in this commission, as opposed to any other commissions I've participated in, where a bylaw would attempt to violate a person's First Amendment rights, which that's not too much of a concern. If that happens, that can be rectified, but it shouldn't have to be in the first place. But, you know, let's remember, sunlight is the best cleanser here, and I think it's better for all of us, not only the employees of the police department and the commissioners. Let's not forget the general public. The general public, at least that I hear from, feels very much like it, you know, your hands are tied if something happens. Granted, if there's an egregious thing you feel like you need to complain about, we all know there's a procedure for that. But for any other commentary, it's very intimidating to even think to speak to this commission, because it's prevented, or was prevented, and still will be, I guess, for another month, to speak about anything that could be perceived as negative. At one iteration, it was positive or negative. I don't know how you comment on anything. And even this recent discussion you just had about executive session, and I understand both sides of that. I certainly wouldn't want if I worked for somebody else, I wouldn't want my employment terms negotiated in public. It would be ineffective. But it really seems that, and particularly from the Republican side of the commission, not just these commissioners, but in the past, that it's better to just keep information from the public until they have a way to find out. And that's usually through the news. It's just very disheartening. And it really, I think, quashes the public's desire to be involved. And that may be good for certain people. It may be bad for certain people. But a commission should never discourage public involvement. No other commission, with some exceptions, have that. We're not the only police department or police commission. And I haven't seen any other commission bylaws that say right up front, if you're going to talk, you better not say anything negative. So I'm glad that'll be worked out. But I just wanted to express it really feels from, and it's not just me, and it's people of both parties that I've talked to, that feel like almost like the commission is against public involvement. And that's a shame, I think. So I'm hoping that through this bipartisan effort here, that will change, because the citizens, the general members of the public, we are the community. We are too. We may not be a police officer or a commissioner, but we're members of the public and we matter, and our voices should matter. That's what this country is all about. So I'd like to see more of that spirit on this commission. I'm hoping that it will happen. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any?
Linda.
Oh. Yeah.
Thank you all for your service.
Identify yourself.
Oh, sorry, my name is Linda Mahal. I'm an Old Saybrook resident, and thank you all for your service, both on the commission and in the department. I really appreciate all the time you give to these meetings and working out problems. I have a few brief points. I'll try to be brief. So we've all witnessed in the news lately egregious omissions from resumes at the federal governmental level. So none of us are strangers to people making omissions on their resumes. So in terms of this decertification issue, I'm wondering if when OSPD recruits officers, as part of that background check and check on references, do we consult the National Decertification Index so that if someone is omitting that they once served for a police department in some other state and they, were decertified in that state, but not referred to the National Decertification Index, how would we find that out? So do we check with that index to see if our applicants are listed there? Number two, in terms of retention, I heard the chief say tonight, the rules have to apply to everyone. So I'm coming from a background as a teacher, and teachers like police officers are often thinking about, okay, I have to be fair to everyone. I have to try to have the rules apply to everyone. Now, there can be extenuating circumstances, of course, but I'm wondering what might be the feelings, perhaps the unspoken feelings of our officers when one officer is recommended for decertification and gets listed on that National Decertification Index, while another for the same misconduct is not recommended for decertification to that national list. I'm just wondering how that might play into our officers' feelings about the rules applying to everyone. Another point, we're looking at the DOE for examples of how to conduct business. It seems to me that teacher evaluations are a common discussion topic at Board of Educations across the country in terms of the general instrument. Now,
30 seconds.
oh, okay. So I don't see why just talking about a general instrument should be done in executive session. And finally, I would just echo, Mark, please remember our First Amendment rights. Please remember that we're the public that gets policed. We need to have a say. We need to give you feedback. You should want our feedback. Both the department and the commission should want our feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Gwen Stengel Pond again, and just kudos to this fabulous meeting, very interesting stuff. There should be the paper here to cover how you guys are really digging deep into our rights, your rights, and making everything right, best we can. And I want to echo those two guys, because I was going yay if they were saying all that. But just a recommendation on the responsibilities of commissioners to inform themselves, the 9,000 series in the Board of Ed, but also take a look at our code of ethics. Maybe a simple referring to them to make a final call on anything that there's concern. And because that code of ethics is out there on our website, and it is a nice reference and should tap into all our commissions and organizations in town. So we don't have to get carried away with our own detail. We got somebody else that covered it. And then just I'm looking forward to Chief Sparrow's update on that intersection. It got lost in the email, I'm not sure, but I guess there was a follow-up, and I look forward to hearing about that. But again, on the transparency and the communication, I think we all hate email sufficiently. So maybe not all the areas that bug us, but here are the things that we're looking at that we're going to be addressing. If that could be something that was put out on the website. So again, in the interest of transparency, and we got your back and your intersections. Thanks.
Larry, do we have any hands raised in the virtual audience?
No hands raised online.
Got it. Okay. Next item, comments from the Chief of Police.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Want to extend my sincere thanks to both the captain and Master Sergeant DeMarco for leading the department in my absence over the last week. The captain obviously has that experience multiple times a year. I know he enjoys it very, very much. And Master Sergeant DeMarco got his first crack at what your cell phone does when you're in charge of the police department. And I think that he thoroughly enjoyed it and would be looking to additional opportunities to do that. Just to follow up on our 3-minute plus 3-minute member of the audience. She did echo that I met with her out that day. We did. We had a lovely conversation. I think I wanted to be there for 10 minutes. I think we were there for 40. And when I left that meeting, I did follow up with the first selectman to give him my thoughts, and he said he would forward it to the town engineer. So because it involves a state right of way, we have to present it to the state traffic authority, USTA, and we have to present it with engineered drawings. I do not know where that process is. I'll be committed to check with the first selectman to see if that's been completed or if he's put other projects ahead. I don't know, not my thing. But we'll do that. Secondly, as larger developments come into town, that is our opportunity to work with the DOT, or when they redesign intersections. That is the town's opportunity to sit down with DOT engineers and say, hey, listen, locally, this is what we're seeing. Can we do this? Can we tweak that? Can we do that? And sometimes they're amenable and sometimes they're not. One situation that I like talking about is I like something called exclusive pedestrian phasing. Meaning that if the sign says walk, you should be able to walk with confidence that no one else is told that they could go if they're in a car. The DOT is not fond of that because it backs or stacks up traffic. So as an example, Route 1 and Main Street, when they were doing the new North Main Street complex, I asked for exclusive pedestrian phasing and they refused to take away the right on red. That creates a scenario where someone hits the walk button, the sign says walk, and you can walk, but legally you can still take the right on red. Don't like that. I won the challenge with the Big Y complex. So technically, when the sign says walk and you want to go from Dunkin' Donuts to the Marine store, West Marine, everything's red. And there's a sign that says no turn on red. Can't tell you everyone reads that sign. But at least exclusive pedestrian phasing. So those are the types of discussions that we have. Additionally, I'll never forget, as soon as they started putting into the stacking things that look like cameras on all the lights, first selectman called me and said, why are you putting traffic cameras everywhere? And I thought to myself, how could I possibly gotten that by everyone? I must have personally funded the whole thing, right? Because that would be a lot of money. So they're not cameras. They track how many cars are stacked up to deal with the program of the signal change. It used to be they would cut things in the road, like on Old Boston Post Road, when you sit staring at the firehouse, and then you either decide, well, what the hell, how much could the ticket be? Or you back up and go forward again to reenact the trip. They went from in-ground trips that they have to constantly saw and replace after plowing season to stacking cameras up top. Because there's big DOT plans to, everyone had to evacuate, change all the lights to green on Route 1 across the whole state. I mean, big stuff. So we do our part with traffic safety. It's important to us. So important that I was recently advised that we'll be given by the state 2 of those, we have the speed trailer things. There'll be 2 pole mounted ones. And the rules are we have to put them on town roads. So what I'm going to do once everything starts to get finalized is I'm going to try a little bit of community engagement, which we talked about in my executive goals, because we want to hear from the residents on where they think those 2 signs should be installed free of charge by the state for us. And this will be the opportunities for different neighborhoods or neighborhoods that are off main arteries to say, hey, we think it should be here. So I'm finding out all the rules. Right now, I know 2 for free must be on a local road. I sent an email today asking permission to do what I want to do, which is what I just told you. Hopefully they say yes. See why it could be no. And we'll do some community engagement. And then maybe we'll have people come here and say, I think this thing should be put on my street because X, Y, and Z. And then we'll choose, I'll ultimately choose where it goes, but hearing the comments from everyone can set up next year's schedule for 3 speed boxes are deployed. So maybe you don't get the permanent sign, but maybe you get the temporary speed box for a couple of weeks. So just that's a thought on a little bit of community engagement related to traffic safety coming up.
Awesome.
And finally, I don't like to go back and forth in public comment. I find it to be a complete waste, but let me just address a couple things. Look, obviously, when we are doing the background investigation to hire a new police officer, we do lots of things. One of the quickest things we can do is checking the National Decertification Index and the state decertification list. We also Google their names and read about, what they've done. So if they're lateral hires, it's very interesting to see how they've been captured. We look at court proceedings, civil court proceedings. Have they been involved in civil litigation? Things to that effect. We get their pay records from the Connecticut Labor Department. We look into their taxes. I mean, it's a very comprehensive background investigation, and that's after their polygraph, where they're specifically asked questions about job-related matters. Have they been terminated? Have they left the job under investigation, et cetera, et cetera. So these things are done. I think tonight I've explained at the level of nauseam the difference between decertification and resigning under investigation for malfeasance. If there's someone out there who watches this later or is listening now who does not understand the difference, please contact me. I'll be more than happy to explain the difference, as I have with any other individual that's contacted me about this matter. I take my role to make sure that we have the right people working for our agency and policing our community very seriously. Sometimes that's not celebrated, and I don't care. Right? I'm not asking for pity on the job that I have to do. You might have an officer that you think is great, but if they turn out not to be, it's my job to get rid of them. Maybe they're a fit somewhere else and not here. Still my job to make sure that they're not policing Old Saybrook. And while that may be unpopular, I think it would probably be more unpopular if this commission or members of the community found out that I was sweeping things under the rug, looking the other way, issuing minor discipline so major discipline can't happen. Things that quite frankly do happen in other agencies. I won't do that here. If that makes me unpopular, so be it. It's my job. That's it.
Thank you. Comments from police commissioners. Start with Ms. Shippey.
First of all, right on red, so people are aware of what that is. You need to come to a complete stop. Right on red does not mean if the light is red, you can still take a right.
Right.
That's a big, huge misconception, because if you truly stop at your red light at the top of Main Street, you can see the person at the crosswalk there. It's absolutely crazy. And every morning going to work, I have people coming from the Monkey Farm direction, like 4 cars. I have a green light and 4 cars are still coming across the road.
Those are late leavers from the monkey farm.
What are you talking about? Like you're in front of, on the side of there.
Correct.
So that, and then I vote for Schoolhouse Road for one of the traffic things. And if the beginning of Maple Avenue, not the part where Nolan and Fenwood is a town road, I vote for that too. Just telling you what I think.
Jessica?
So we're gonna be at war because I definitely think my road should be.
I don't think I'm sure though.
I know, just eat at the McDonald's side of Bingham
Honestly,
Hill.
my road should, but
You know, how much does it cost to get more of these signs? Do you know?
We're still looking into it.
Okay,
I
great.
released it as a little common thing. Tonight is not the time to say that it should be on my.
Yeah, we're here. But thank
But I'm
you.
glad you're both open-minded to where they should
Oh my
be.
God, that and Maple Ave, thank you. But anyways, I have nothing to say, other than, you know,
I am just looking forward to finalizing some of these bylaw amendments and look forward to the next meeting.
It's some of the comments out in the public have been, oh, it takes you so long to do things and, you know, why is everything just dragging and not moving along? And I think in some respects, what we did tonight was demonstrative for the public to see how detailed we are getting with some of this stuff. And to know that we're not dealing with very simple issues. We're dealing with very complex things, such as freedom of speech, First Amendment rights. So, you know, if we plod along, I guess I'm the most impatient one bunch, but
Oh, I don't think that's.
really, hello.
I take that pride.
just needed to say that.
I think the most impatient one is doing your immediate right.
What the difference, right, between campaigning and governing? There's no rules in campaigning really, but there's a lot of rules involved in governing. And sometimes it takes time to get it right.
But they're big, they're big.
They're big stuff, yeah.
Carol?
Thank you. I hope it hasn't started snowing, and if it has, I hope we'll have home safe. I'm done.
Joe? Thank you. And none from me. Thank you all.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.